Hello, hello, hello. How are you all doing today? Oh, I'm so glad that you elected and decided to come and draw with us a little bit today. I'm Charlie Newton, and this is your free art class, Splash Free Art Class, Splash Live. And we're here to teach you some drawing techniques. So today we're going to do a type of drawing that we call finished drawing. The last 2 or 3 weeks we've been talking about contour drawing and gesture drawing, and we talked a little bit about the skeleton and how that plays into the gesture drawing. We talked about that gesture drawing is drawing what the figure or object is doing, and it's a real quick, fast drawing. Then we talked about contour drawing, which is a very slow drawing. It's drawing the outside or the contour of the object or person. Okay, and when you're doing a contour drawing, your eye moves when your hand moves when your eye moves. It's hand-eye coordination. And you imagine that you're as small as an ant and you're crawling around the surface of the object that you're drawing. And so today we're going to do what's called a finished drawing. I had mentioned finished drawings. A finished drawing is different than the contour and the gesture, but it incorporates everything that we learned from contour and gesture. Before we get started, I want to remind you of something. All of this takes a lot of practice, and it's really not much. Kids, sometimes you think it's hard, you think that it's a lot, but it's not. It's really simple. When we're doing the contour drawing, you're not being judgmental. When you're doing the gesture drawing, you're not being judgmental. You're not trying to make the thing look exactly like the object. You're just trying to get a feel of what you are seeing. You're trying to connect your eyes, and you're trying to feel with your eyes. So gesture drawings, if you sat down and drew for 30 minutes, you should be able to get 25, 30 gesture drawings in. If you're doing a contour drawing, maybe you'll get 2 drawings in 30 minutes or maybe 3. But contour drawing is very slow and gesture drawing is very fast. So let's go to the the drafting table, and I want to demonstrate. Today we're going to draw a picture of a football player. His name is Kareem Hunt with Kansas City. Some of you guys know him, and he's a running back. And first, before we start the finished drawing, I just want to do a review of contour and gesture drawing. I'll do a quick review. So a gesture drawing of this figure would be something like this. I'm thinking about the spine, I'm thinking about the hips, and I'm thinking about the shoulders and what's happening. And I'm thinking about the skeletal system, the bones. And you draw through, you never pick, the head is not really that important. And you never pick the pencil up off the paper. So that's the gesture right there. Now, you can do this from life. So you could go into a mall, or if you're at the doctor's office or anywhere where there's people, you can practice gesture, and you should practice gesture. Or you can get your family to model for you. You can do it that way too. Or your friends to model for you. Now, the contour would be more like this. It's much slower. It's slower than I'm doing it, but I just want to show you the basics. I'm not worried about if it looks like the person or not. I'm just observing with my eyes, and I'm trying to when my eyes move, my hands move. So I'm really training my eyes to see. What is it I'm looking at? What is this? You're training your eyes. If you can see it, you can draw it. So that's a contour drawing. I can also go on the inside if I want to, and it gets a little bit more complex. Okay. So when doing a finished drawing, you put these two together. I want to introduce one more concept to you today that I've never talked about before. And this is mass, M-A-S-S. So we've drawn the inside of the figure. We've drawn the outside, which is contour. But now there's another type of drawing that's called mass, doing a mass study. You're thinking about weight now. So look how I'm holding my pencil. So you're making wide, broad lines, and I'm just trying to feel out the mass of this figure. You would do the same thing with a still life. Remember, still life is when you're drawing things, an object, a glass or a chair or whatever, inanimate objects. So I'm trying to feel the mass. And I make heavier lines when I want to show weight. See? You get a feel for the object and the mass. We haven't done a lot of practice, but you would practice this as much as you would practice contour and gesture drawing. Practice make perfect. The more you do, the better you get. And it's not a lot of work. It's not a lot of work at all. Some kids, are afraid of a little work, but it's not really work. It's once you start focusing, it's that's the only way you're going to get better. You're not going to get better at anything that you don't practice. So let's draw this football player together. I'm going to start off with a hard lead pencil. So I'm going to use an H, 2H. If you can, any H pencil, HB would be the best. And I keep forgetting to bring my HB pencil in here. I have a whole lot of pencils. Excuse me. No, this is fine. By the way, when drawing and when practicing drawing, I want you to learn how to use all of these pencils, and I want you to use the full range of that lead. Okay? Now I'm going to find a sheet of paper to draw on that's going to be better for this one. Do I want to draw on this knife? This is 140 pounds. I'm going to get a lighter paper. Anthony, can you give me one of those sheets of paper out of that box, please? Let's see. Well, do we have another pad? We had another pad this size. You remember those other pads that we had? But it's not the watercolor pad. It's not the watercolor, but mixed media. It's the mixed media pad. It's brown. But I'm looking for a small one this size. I may not have one in here. Okay. The reason why I was looking for a paper that didn't have so much texture, but I'll use this one. It's okay. I'll use, I'll use this one. So when I look at this figure, I want to, first I want to try to decide how much space on the paper, the picture plane, is going to take. Okay. So I envision that with my eyes in my mind. Then I'm going to just do a light gesture of the form, just a light gesture to see if that's going to work, what's in my mind. Because I just need something to go by. Now, if you draw too large, and I draw large, if you draw something and it looks like it's not going to fit inside the paper, let it run off the page. Never try to fit anything in. Now, once you start drawing, you know, if you decide basically where everything's going to be, that should be good enough. So I have a basic gesture of the shapes and forms. And in my mind, I'm sort of doing right now, I'm thinking about the mass, his mass as well. So I have somewhere to start. He's giving a guy a stiff arm. So I like that bit. So you can start anywhere you want to. I've watched the guy draw portraits, and he started from the bottom. He drew upward. He scrolled upward, and that's very difficult to do. And then most common is to scroll downward. If at all possible, don't scroll at all. You know what I mean when I'm saying when I say scroll? I'll show you. I'll demonstrate. I'm going to demonstrate it on that camera in front of me. So a scroll, back in the Bible days, 2,000 years ago, people would send letters and announcements on scrolls, and even the Bible was written on a scroll. So when we're talking about scrolling, we're talking about when you're drawing, you're doing this. That's how most people draw. I basically draw that way too. And like I said, I watched a guy scroll upward instead of downward. I think for me, it's easier to scroll downward. But what you want to actually do is take your time and sketch the figure in such a way that you can make changes. So I have this art gum here that I can erase. I suggest a kneaded eraser because it's pliable. And what we're going to do is draw lightly and sketch lightly with our hard lead pencil so that I can make changes. I'm going to use my paper towel to rest my hand on. I'm thinking a lot now, so it's hard for me. Sometimes I'll forget words when I'm drawing because I'm really thinking. So this angle, I see the angle of the head. Now, if you have a phone, you can blow your images up. You can enlarge your images to make it easier. So I'm starting with his eyes here, but again, no detail. I just want to get the basic shape of everything. Get the basic shape and the forms. I'm still sketching. This is light, a lot of lines, right? I don't know where everything's going to end up. I'm trying to find this form. I should have picked something a little bit easier, probably. But, que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. Never think that you can't do something. Always think that you can. Nothing beats a failure but a try. Always try. And if you fail, at least you tried. You won't fail all the time. So I'm still sketching the basic form. No detail. Details are last. Details are last. I'm thinking about anatomy and everything, but my gesture here that I already drew, this light gesture tells me, it informs me about anatomy. See, I can see some changes that's going to happen. Nothing is right yet. Nothing is correct. As I draw, I make changes all down through the drawing. And if you can, draw the entire thing at once. Definitely when you're painting, you want to paint the entire thing at once. By the way, I'm not trying to make this drawing look exactly like the photograph. I'm trying to make it look a little bit more alive than the photograph if I can, which is, it's very difficult to do. But the reason being, the photograph is the camera's eye is two-dimensional. The camera has one eye. I have two. So I want this drawing to look more like I am seeing this and not the camera. I want the drawing to look like my eye and not the camera's eyes. Does that make any sense? The camera has one eye, so it's going to be automatically flat. I don't want my drawing to be as flat as this thing. Now, it doesn't look, the picture don't look flat to you. It looks 3D to you because your mind fills in the gaps, especially with a good photography. And this photographer is, like a major photographer, and, he or she knows how to photograph sports and action. So I want this to look like a drawing. I don't want this to look like a photograph. If I wanted this to look like a photograph, I would just take a picture of it. That's logical, isn't it? We have cameras. Take a picture. If you wanted to make something that looks like a photograph, just use photography and see how well you can do that. Because it would be difficult to photography is not easy. One day in Splash, as more people support us, we're going to have photography classes one day. That's my goal. And I think all kids should at least have an introduction to photography. So I'm still trying to get the basic shapes, which I can change. There's a lot of changes to be made, but I'm just penciling in the basics that I see. And I'm probably going to draw from the bottom up. Before I start putting in any detail, I'm going to See, that's the angle of that leg there. I had to check that angle. So that's the angle of that leg, about like that. You don't have to draw as fast as I'm drawing. I'm drawing fast, believe it or not. And this is not right. I'm, you know, when people say there's no right and wrong in art, for the most part, I agree. But if you don't, I want you to know what I feel is that if you don't do your best, that's wrong. The only wrong in art is when you don't do your best. When you try to take the easy way out. I don't know why people would do that. Artists, you know, serious artists don't take the easy way out. Well, we try to make things easy for ourselves, but we have enough patience to work, we have that pride, you know. Some artists don't have any pride. I'm sad to say, but we have artistic integrity. Some do. These days, integrity is like a lost word. Everybody, I think it's the money thing, but I don't do art to make money. I make money to do art. Some of you will catch that later on today. If I'm an artist, then I'm going to make art, bottom line. If you have talent, why not use it? When did you start drawing? I started drawing when I was 5 years old. I'm going to use this kneaded eraser to clean things up later on. Okay, so this is not an easy thing to draw. So it's hard for me to draw this too. So don't feel bad if this is difficult. It's okay. You are just practicing. It's just practice. You're not going to get graded for this. And if I was going to grade you, I would grade you depending on how hard you tried, not what the thing looked like. See, I'm using a contour. Now I'm looking at the contour of this now. I'm trying to make this more accurate now. In the end, it's like, okay, am I happy with the way it looks? Usually if it's just like the photograph, I may not be so happy with it. So what I'm going to do in just a minute, okay, see now this needs to be changed. See how I'm going back over it, going back, making some minor adjustments, because I will see it differently than I did a minute ago. I'm going to see this thing differently. Hopefully better. The more you look, the more you see. Okay, so I'm going to let this, he's not sitting the way I want him to sit. He's sort of twisting, but man. That S curve is something that's really beautiful to me. So that's what I'm trying to get. So I'm going to probably exaggerate his thighs a little bit. Now, this is basically the contour that I'm going to use. Hands are a whole nother deal. We'll talk about hands another day. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. I'm still using my HB pencil, my 2H. So I'm going to use this 2H until I just have to have a different pencil. A lot of these details, I've just decided I'm going to hint at some of these details, and for the sake of time. I'm just going to hint at some of them. Focus on the helmet right now. Now, if I had all the time in the world, and I could spend 3 hours on this thing, I might not just hint at the helmet. In other words, when I say I'm going to hint at it, I'm going to attempt to draw the lines that say helmet, and I'm going to leave out some details. As long as it says helmet, the picture says helmet to me or to you, I'm going to let your mind fill in the gaps. Because I'm more interested in this twisting, falling figure. When you have total confidence, you don't say, well, I'm not going to draw that because, at least I don't, because, it's too hard or whatever. I just say, no, this is what I want to draw today, so I just attempt to draw it. And if I blow it, mess it up, so what? It don't matter. Now, if you're in school, it may matter for a grade, but usually in school, the professor or the teacher just wants to know that you understand the concepts. Everybody is unique and different. You are unique and different. So no two people are going to draw and paint exactly the same way. No two creative people are going to express themselves exactly the same way, because that wouldn't be creative, would it? So some kids, you have your autonomy. You express your autonomy in art, but you express it in the wrong fashion. You still need someone to teach you or train you for a while until you can develop your own voice. And that's the value of the art teacher. The value of these art classes is that you know you can end up doing things the wrong way for years and years, and you can actually make it work for you too, and that's fine. But the problems that you have, you will not be able to solve them without some type of teacher. And the value of somebody with experience is that they've learned the craft. Now, I'm a detailed person, so I really want to put a lot of detail in this, but I'm not going to have to tell myself, just make it, don't put a lot of detail in, just make it look like a drawing. I'm still using the H pencil. I'm going to use this pencil and go back later. I don't need this line here. See, what the value in sketch lines is that you can choose which lines you want to use. You have more choices when you sketch. If I just scroll down and if I thought that my first line was correct, then I won't be able to make any choices. Now, a lot of people can sketch better than me. I don't sketch much these days. I only I paint most of the time. I do little sketches for my paintings, but I don't do many finished drawings. You notice how these lines are different weights? That's on purpose. So I made his forearm. This guy has a big forearm, huge. So I'm going to go back with the different weights and shade the picture. There's so much detail. I didn't even notice all this detail, like the numbers. You know, I have to put the chess numbers on here, don't I? Because that's what everybody's going to be looking for. I know. The cloth of his shirt, because he's twisting it, folds in some areas, that's what distorts these numbers. I'm still using contour drawing for a lot of this, and I'm still thinking about the gesture as I'm working my sketch. Excuse me. So now I'm beginning to put in a little bit more details. You want to use the point of your pencil for details. Oh, by the way, if you want a lot of detail in your drawing, you're going to draw. You could draw larger. So I'm drawing on a 9 by 12 sheet of paper. If you want to be able to put in a whole lot of detail, you want to use a larger sheet of paper. Okay. Now remember, when you are drawing with graphite or pencil, do not dig into the paper. You're going to be tempted to want to put a lot of pressure to make things heavier, but what you do is just change pencils. When you're shading, just change pencils. The thick and thinness of the lines can help describe the form and the action. That takes time to get used to too. It's called line variation. Splash kids have heard me talk about that before. Now, another good rule to remember is do whatever it takes. Don't be a slave to the picture. The picture is in color, it's flat. I'm using, it's in ink. I'm using graphite and black and white. I'm not using color. So whatever it takes to make your picture look right, do it. I'm doing cross-hatching here on the football. So I'm going to do all my shading with this one pencil, then I'm going to go back with the other pencil. I don't know how many other pencils I'm going to use, maybe one more pencil. Now what I could do is, for the sake of time, I'm going to use maybe one or two more pencils. But if this was an actual finished drawing that I was doing for the sake of art, I might use 2 or 3 more pencils and spend 2 or 3 more hours. But the reason why I'm not going to use too many pencils is because it would take too long. Now every line I'm making is intentional because I want this drawing to say something. I don't have to draw every line. I'm thinking of things I might leave out, other things that I may not draw now, other lines, because it would make, sometimes you can make the picture boring by putting too much detail in it. I want my lines, my pencil lines, to tell a story. Now, we call this a finished drawing because I'm putting more effort into this than the contour or the gesture. I'm saying a lot of detail that I'm not going to attempt to draw because it just takes too long. But the detail I'm not going to draw is little small things that you probably wouldn't see, and you don't see unless you are an experienced artist yourself. Whenever you're making a painting or a drawing, use only the detail that you need. You don't want to draw everything. You have to, knowing what to leave out is just as important as knowing what to put in to a work of art. You don't you don't put everything in because you want your art to say something. Okay, now I'm going to change pencils, and I'm going to go in and shade. I'm not going to use a 2B. The natural thing to do would be to go to a 2B, but I'm going to go to a 4B. I'm going to skip some lids. I'm going to try to control it. Excuse me. Just let it break up and sharpen it too much. So with a 4B, you really have to be careful that you don't put too much pressure. Now this lead is so sharp, it could break. If it does, I'll get another pencil. I'm putting very light pressure on this pencil. Very light. Sometimes I'll use the point to make a sharp line so that you can see. So if I had gone to a 2B, I'll show you. I'm going to go get a 2B. When I jumped up, I could have even used a B pencil. Let's see if I can find a 2B. Yeah, here's one. So each pencil has a range of textures. So this dark-skinned football player, I want you to see that he's a black man and that he's dark-skinned. But I also want you to see the details that you might not see in the photograph. You may not notice some of these details in his face in the photograph. So that's why I want a range of value that will that will show you his features. Even though this is a small picture, I still want you to see his features. I think I've accomplished that now. So I used the 2B to get that mid-range. I'm using the 4B to get the darker values. And that way I don't have to press into the paper. This guy has dreadlocks. I'm going to draw those in. See this heavier line here, hopefully will bring this arm forward. So I'm not just using one pressure. Sometimes I'm drawing very lightly to make the shadows light, and sometimes I'm drawing very dark. I'm putting more pressure on the paper, like now for the football. Now I'm using the point of my pencil to show some detail. So with pencil, you have lines. When you're drawing, you're using lines. It's not just shading, it's lines too. Now, of course, not all the time. Sometimes it's just shadows, just shading, depending on what effect you're trying to get. Anthony, you have any idea how much time I have? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Okay. Okay. By the way, from the I'm going to start a new project with Splash Live. I'm going to do some special broadcasts for Dr. King's birthday and African American History Month. I'm going to mix those two. So from the 15th of January through the 15th of February, I may have a guest artist or two, but I want to show you what happens in the studio. I'm going to do some live studio painting. My own work, my own studio work, which is rare to see an artist do his work in a studio. And I'm just doing that in honor of Dr. King's birthday and Black History Month. That will be live on Facebook as well, Charlie Newton's Facebook page. And I may have some other black artists come in and do something as well. I know one artist has agreed to do it already. So don't miss that. It's a rare chance to see an artist at work in the studio. And you will see, I won't just be doing traditional stuff or classical art that I'm teaching you. I'm going to be doing my own style. And I'll be telling you about the theme and why I'm doing the artwork. I have an art show, a large art show next year that I need to get ready for this year. So, who knows, I might be famous one day, and you'll be able to say, hey, I saw him working in his studio. There's nothing like observing an artist's work, whether you're in music or fine art, but you learn so much by looking. I learn from other artists. I even learn from my students. if I was doing this in my studio, if I decided I wanted to paint an image of a football player for some whatever reason, this would be larger and a lot more dramatic. I'll tell you guys, especially for the say the 14 to 19-year-old, line variation. If you're a little younger, you won't be able to understand what I mean by varying the line, and that's okay. You don't have to yet, but your line is what you speak with. Get Gaining control of your lines is so important. Those are your tools. I'm still making changes, the micro changes as I'm putting in some details. Using cross hatching. Splash Kids, we practice cross hatching. So kids, as I was saying, I'm going to do these projects, but I want you to work on your projects right alongside me. So what I've done is I've ordered some oil paints, which is the creme de la creme. If you can paint in oils, you can paint in anything. It's the hardest medium, but the most beautiful medium in painting. It's nothing like acrylics. Acrylics is okay, but if you can paint in oils, I know I gave you kids, if you don't, some of you have acrylic paints and you might decide, well, I'm going to paint this in acrylics. But I want you to work alongside me on your own work as well. It's going to start the 15th or somewhere around there, around the 15th. I don't know what day the 15th is on, so I can't say for sure. But it will be a weekday. I'm going to work in my studio and several hours, so you can see what happens from beginning to finish. I'm going to do that for an entire month, just to celebrate blackness. So I'm not going to finish that foot because it's not necessary. It'll look better unfinished. It look more like he's in motion. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thanks for telling me. Has it been in the way all this time? Okay. See, all I'm doing is shading. I'm using two pencils here. I'm using hatch marks and cross hatch. But if you want to participate, Splash students need to connect with me. I'm going to try to connect with you, and we can get you those oil paints. Because oil paints are very Oil paints are very expensive. So this year marks our 10th year at Splash, and we've never used oil paints before because it's something that it takes time to master, but it's what the old masters used. Nothing wrong with acrylics. Acrylics is a very modern paint, but I would like for some of my better students to experience oil paints. You can paint in oils, you can paint in acrylics, no doubt. But being able to paint in acrylics don't mean that you can paint in oils. And this is rare. I may never do that again. But because of COVID, I'm and you have to stay at home so much and everything. This is Splash's COVID relief project to give you guys something to do while you're at home. If you are part of Splash, connect with me, text me, inbox me, and let me know, because we're only going to have just a select few, 10 people that I'm going to distribute oil paints to. And if you are a Splash student, you can participate. Okay, I'm almost done. I just want to vary some of these shadows a little bit. Help the figure stand out a little bit more. So sometimes I'm using the side of my pencil. When I want a thin line, heavy line, I use the point of the pencil. If it's a small detail, I'll use the point. See what the point would do? Yeah. And so what we would do, I'm going to finish up. What I would normally do, what you would normally do, is you would keep drawing until there's nothing left to do. Until you feel like, okay, I've done it all. I do not feel I've done it all here. And let me show you something else while I'm at it before we leave. I'm going to show you what you can do with this kneaded eraser. I'm going to put a background in here. Putting the background in just gives it more action. So Splash COVID Relief Project is going to celebrate Dr. King's birthday, and in celebration of Dr. King's birthday and Black History Month. So I'll be online for hours. So let me show you this one last thing. You can take your kneaded eraser and you can use it for highlights. You can use it to clean up your drawing as well. I'm going to see if I can put in a couple of highlights in the helmet, maybe. On the helmet. So you can twist it. You can twist this eraser and put a point on there. So you can take off lines that you don't want. So instead of using paint, say for instance, if you was painting, you would use white, but for a graphite or pencil drawing, you just use an eraser. See, hold on. See, those little highlights can add to your picture. Put a few highlights on his pads, his leg here. You know what? I'm going to stop there. I think you get the point. I could keep drawing, and I would just build this thing up slowly. A few more hours, just keep building it up softly. But as always, put your name on your picture and your age. And once again, that's one more art class in the can. So thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed drawing with you today. I hope that you join me again on Thursday, 5 to 6 o'clock, and Saturday, 11 to 12. And don't forget, we're going to celebrate Dr. King's birthday and Black History Month from January 15th through February 15th. We may go a little further, but you will get a chance to visit my studio and see me working on my personal important pieces for an upcoming exhibition, if they are good enough. But and we might get a chance to meet a few more artists as well. Anyway, until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, art is for everyone. Bye-bye.